let's dive right into this. Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone, where we break down the complex data, rules, and hidden strategies that completely define the world of sports. Today, we're taking a really close look at a very specific, highly controversial football match from June 25th, 2026, out at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Now, this is a match that's going to be etched into the history books, but definitely not for breathtaking goals or end-to-end action. No, it's remembered for a totally calculated mathematical lack of them. You know, throughout football history, we've seen matches permanently tainted by the label of a disgrace, like the infamous Disgrace of Dijon, where two teams basically agreed to a result that suited them both. Well, what we saw between Paraguay and Australia was essentially a modern-day reflection of that exact phenomenon. So, right off the bat, we have to ask ourselves a pretty core question here. Was this scoreless draw a stroke of absolute tactical genius by both coaching staffs, or was it just a straight-up insult to the beautiful game? It is incredibly rare to watch a sporting event where both teams happily walk off the pitch having won by doing absolutely nothing. To really understand how a 0-0 draw can be viewed as a massive shared victory, we have to look past the grass and focus entirely on the numbers. Section 1. The motive. The Group D qualification math. To figure out why practically nothing happened out there in Arizona, we first have to look at the motive. Heading into the final match day of Group D, that motive was entirely about a delicate mathematical balance. You've got Tony Popovich's Australia and Gustavo Alfaro's Paraguay, both sitting comfortably at 3 points. Paraguay had scraped by Turkey 1-0, but then took a heavy 4-1 loss to the USA. They had all their key guys available, though, including keeper Orlando Gil and Miguel Almiron, and crucially, they faced zero red card risk coming into this. On the flip side, Australia had also beaten Turkey 2-0, but lost 2-0 to the USA. They were boasting Patrick Beach in goal, who was fresh off an absolutely incredible 8-save game. But here is the ultimate key to the whole standoff, the qualification scenario. A draw guaranteed Paraguay a spot as a best third-place team, and a draw guaranteed Australia the Group D's second-place spot. It brilliantly illustrates the ultimate game theory dilemma, right? Think about it. If you play aggressively for a win, sure, you give the fans what they want. But if you push numbers forward and get caught on a counterattack, you risk complete elimination. But if you just play for a draw, it becomes this mutually beneficial gentleman's draw. Both teams do the math, both teams realize a point is literally as good as a win, and both mathematically guarantee their ticket to the knockout rounds. I mean, what would you choose if your job and your entire nation's advancement were on the line? Section 2. The evidence. A masterclass in nothing. With the motive totally firmly established, the match itself proved to be an ironically tense masterclass in doing absolutely nothing. 0. That is literally the most important number from this entire match. For the first 60 minutes of the game, both teams combined for a staggering, magnificent 0 shots on target. Honestly, it is actually incredibly difficult for 22 professional footballers to not even accidentally register a shot on target over the course of an hour. But it perfectly demonstrates the execution of a pure zero-risk strategy. The objective wasn't to score. The objective was just to ensure the opponent didn't score, all while knowing the opponent was trying to do the exact same thing. And this all played out in front of a half-empty, totally unenthusiastic stadium in Phoenix. Because let's be real, the crowd had already predicted this mutually beneficial non-event. The team's priorities drastically shifted. The vast majority of the game plan was clearly dedicated to just conserving energy. The rest, incredibly safe substitutions designed not to inject pace, but simply to keep the defensive formation rigid. And as for an attacking threat, it was completely non-existent. 0%. Nobody wanted to risk leaving even a tiny gap. Section 3. The action. Rare glimpses of football. Now, I'm using the word action very, very loosely here. Because if you were looking for a highlight reel, there were exactly 2 fleeting moments in the entire 90 minutes that vaguely resembled a competitive football match. Paraguay's absolute best chance was this incredibly safe mid-range effort from Galarza that went directly, and I mean straight, into the waiting arms of Patrick Beach. No tricky bounce, no top corner bend, just right at him. On the Australian side, their sole highlight was a quick breakaway run from Aaron Kunda, which was decisively and instantly snuffed out by a rushing Orlando Gil. 2 moments. That's literally it. As soon as those minor threats were neutralized, both teams immediately reverted right back into their defensive shells. Section 4. The verdict. Optimal versus entertaining. While the managers might have been popping champagne in the dressing rooms afterwards, the footballing world had a very different reaction. Mauricio Pochettino perfectly summed up the glaring lack of ambition here, stating there were no real winners in any sense. And he's totally right when you look at it through the lens of the spirit of the sport. Yes, both teams technically advanced on paper. They achieved their goal. But for the fans in that stadium in Glendale, for the millions watching at home hoping for a spectacle, and honestly for the integrity of the group stage as a competitive format, everyone lost.
Which brings us to a massive, glaring flaw in the sports ecosystem right now. Even with the new tournament rules, when the structure mathematically rewards playing it safe, optimal football becomes the exact opposite of entertaining football. If we tell athletes that the absolute most efficient way to achieve their ultimate goal is to simply stand still and pass the ball backwards, well, we can't be surprised when they do exactly that. The players weren't being lazy, they were just solving the math problem they were handed.
And the heist was undeniably successful. When the final whistle mercifully blew on that 0-0 draw, the final Group D standings were cemented exactly as Popovich and Alfaro had mapped out in their heads. The USA topped the group with 6 points. Australia locked in second place with 4 points, setting up a round of 32 clash with South Africa. Paraguay safely secured their third-place qualification, also on 4 points, sending them through to face Germany. And Turkey, unfortunately stuck on 3 points, was eliminated. The massive gamble of not gambling paid off perfectly for the two teams on the pitch. So this brings us to the ultimate question you have to ask yourself after walking through this explainer. Does the blame fall on the players and the managers for taking the calculated, completely risk-free way out? Or does the blame lie with a tournament structure that makes a mutually beneficial non-event the absolute smartest possible choice? Until the rules change to completely eliminate the mathematical incentive for an agreed draw, we are undoubtedly going to see the ghost of the disgrace of Dijon return again and again. I really hope this deep dive helped clarify exactly what went down in Arizona. Keep your eyes out for our next explainer, where we'll be breaking down the mechanics behind the Ivory Coast versus Curaçao match. Until then, keep analyzing, keep questioning, and thanks so much for learning with us.